Hey everyone, guess what? Donald Trump went on Joe Rogan's podcast this weekend and they had a 3-hour long conversation. That's right. And why don't you just take a guess right now how adversarial this conversation was? Well, if you guessed that it was not adversarial at all, you would be correct. Congratulations. This was a very friendly conversation with very little adversarial moments. And is this surprising? Well, yes and no. It's not surprising because Joe Rogan is a friendly, laid-back, chill guy who rarely challenges his guests. He rarely gets heated. He kind of just nods along. He's just a nice dude. But then here's why I think it is surprising. He's bringing on the most powerful person in the world, potentially, in this January. One of the two people who could become the most powerful person in the world. The person who also served as the most powerful person in the world from 2017 to 2021. He brought that guy on. That guy has a record. He's never brought on, say, former President Obama or Bush to talk about their policies, but now all of a sudden he's got this guy on. He's got a real chance to actually talk to someone who's been in the levers of power and made decisions that have impacted millions, even billions, arguably, of lives. And he's just not holding his feet to the fire. So they talked about the election. I think this is one of the most important issues, the election of 2020. And he gave Trump the chance to explain why he thinks it was stolen from him. Trump went on a long-winded tangent. He lied his butt off, and Rogan kind of just nodded along with it. He didn't really push back much. You could tell that maybe Rogan doesn't necessarily believe the election was stolen, but he let Donald Trump run roughshod over him. It was pretty insane to watch. And of course, this is the big issue that J.D. Vance now is saying Trump actually won in 2020. It's the big issue for a lot of people who are concerned about Trump returning to office, is that if this guy could do that, what's he going to do next? Martial law, refuse to leave office in 2029 if he gets elected? So yeah, it's concerning to a lot of people. Joe Rogan failed to help Trump sort of ameliorate those concerns, and he failed to hold his feet to the fire. They discussed the First Amendment, where basically they talked about how they think Democrats are against the First Amendment, yet Joe Rogan did not ask Trump any questions about his arguments in favor of flag burning, saying that the U.S. Supreme Court should make it constitutional to ban flag burning again, or that Congress should, because he just is obsessed with the idea of censoring flag burning. He didn't push Trump on any of his First Amendment takes. He just goes along with, oh yeah, Democrats against First Amendment. Well, I got bad news for you, Joe. Both parties have a sketchy history with the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Take a constitutional law class, sir. But anyhow, yeah. So I am surprised and I'm not surprised that it wasn't adversarial. They did spend a lot of time talking about some stuff that wasn't purely policy related. And I will give Trump credit for this. He didn't have a lot of moments that were completely incoherent stylistically. And what I mean is that he didn't come off like he was suffering from dementia, which he's actually starting to kind of seem like he is in some recent rallies. He'll slur his words. He'll just babble nonsense. It's really weird. And it's kind of getting into the Joe Biden territory, yet nobody's calling for him to drop out. Nobody's accusing him of not having enough mental stamina. But yeah, I think Trump seemed coherent. He seemed with it in the interview stylistically. Obviously, I disagree with most of what he said. Most of what he said was just objectively false. But yeah, Joe Rogan did not ask Trump, for example, about things related to his tax bill. You said the forgotten man would never be forgotten. How come the tax cuts in your tax bill were permanent only for the wealthy and expired for the middle class and the lower class? He should have asked Trump that. He should have asked Trump, hey, you are someone who prides himself on being anti-deep state, anti-war. Why is it that your first military raid that you approved, killed an 8-year-old American girl? And even Obama hesitated to approve that raid. And yet you'd probably accuse Obama of being anti-war. He would probably say, oh, you said that your administration is going to be great for reproductive rights. Why are there so many people pushing for you, who want a national abortion ban. And why did the Supreme Court just allow states to ban abortion completely? The Supreme Court justices that you appointed. Is that really going to be good for reproductive rights? I don't think so. Rogan had a bunch of different missed opportunities. He could have asked him, and this is less substantive, but hey, you said that Kamala Harris isn't black, although Trump's been asked about that a lot. But yeah, it's just one of his ridiculous moments where it's like, buddy, do you really want to die on this proverbial hill? He was digging himself in a pretty deep hole back in the end of July, and now it's like, he's Trump. Like, he seems invincible in the sense that he can say whatever he wants, and it won't hurt his approval rating. It won't chip away at his supporters. He'll hold steady in the polls until the election, and we just got to wait and see if he loses or not. He didn't ask Trump about the fact that Trump has called Kamala Harris a communist. Not a socialist, a communist. I would have liked to hear Rogan ask a question like, Mr. President, now, you've called Kamala Harris a communist, and I understand that you disagree with some of Kamala Harris's economic policies. I disagree with some of them. But don't you think that it's a stretch to say that she is a communist? Like, what kind of communist? A Leninist, a Maoist, a Marxist? Yeah, it would be a field day to ask Trump to define the word communism as well, because I'm sure that you would get a nonsensical answer. He would say, oh, it's when the government gets big and takes the money and then gives the money to the other people and then tells you not to do things and tells other people to not do things and owns everything. It would be totally incoherent nonsense. But Joe Rogan missed a lot of those good opportunities. Look, let's be real. If you have the president of the United States, you get to have a conversation with them. It's kind of understandable that you'd want to play patty cakes just a little bit, but you've got to ask some hard-hitting questions. You got to do it. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, you're just rehabilitating them. And Joe Rogan has previously said that he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to have on Donald Trump. He was concerned that if he had him on, he would rehabilitate him. He has talked heavy trash about Donald Trump in the past. It's certainly true that in 2020 he said that he didn't want Biden to win, but he's historically not been a fan of Trump. And he even had Bernie Sanders on in 2019 when Bernie Sanders was running for the presidency in the Democratic primary. And it was a nice interview. They were pleasant with each other. They talked more about policy. Bernie Sanders talked a lot about his economic plans, which is the bulk of his campaign: universal health care, $15 minimum wage, free college, unions, stuff like that. But yeah, Bernie Sanders generally tends to focus more on policy, whereas Trump focuses mostly on personality, but a little bit on policy. And Rogan gave Trump a total pass to just play the victim, air all of his personal grievances. He even said, "You are like the most attacked person in the country." Trump went in and started, whined about his assassination attempts. So yeah, he just gave him a giant platform to play the victim. Now, we of course need to get to the part of this interview that might make the election, have an effect on the election in some way. How will this affect the 2024 election? Kamala Harris will not be going on Joe Rogan. Are there going to be people who see this interview and say, well, that's it. Joe Rogan had Trump on and he made Trump seem really chill. He made him seem like a guy I want to get a beer with or smoke some weed with or whatever. I'm going to have to vote for Trump now. Will this have an impact? I'll be honest, I could kind of see undecided voters or people who don't pay much attention to politics seeing that and being like, well, okay, Joe Rogan had him on. He must be a centrist. He must be a normie. He must be a reasonable guy. Joe Rogan's able to talk to him. Joe Rogan's a reasonable guy, right? Yeah. So Rogan basically did the very thing that he is on video previously saying he was concerned about. It's concerning. But yeah, maybe you disagree. Maybe you think that Trump will not gain anything from this interview. Please let me know in the comments. I love to entertain some good old disagreement. If you think that, no, this isn't going to help him, let me know. and let me know why. But yeah, I feel like this wouldn't hurt him. He said insane things. He said things that many American people know to be insane. But the fact of the matter is that, a lot of people aren't super well informed. They're good people, but they're swayed by someone who seems like they're in touch, seems like they're hip. And going on Joe Rogan is generally an all right way of doing that, of showing that you're kind of in touch, you're kind of a normie, you're kind of a good conversational person. And Joe Rogan's good at sanitizing extreme people on his podcast. And I'm afraid that is exactly what happened here. But yeah, I don't know. I'd be interested to know which states in the country tune into Rogan the most. Like if it's swing states, are Pennsylvania citizens really tuning into Rogan, or Michigan, or Georgia? Because if it's just a bunch of people in deep red states that watch Rogan, then it's like, well, maybe not so big of an impact. Yeah, I'm sure he gets tons of viewers from across the country, but that's beside the point. As always, if you like this video or found it interesting or insightful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.